Mario once again with MIA Microflight, and this is sort of a tribute video to the Anycubic I3 Mega. And if anybody has seen my videos on the Anycubic I3 Mega, you know how I stand very firm on this particular machine. I know the Anycubic Mega is not it's not a modern machine at this stage in time. We are in 2025. Um, Going on almost ending the first quarter of 2025, but I'm still very strong on these machines because I have used these machines almost every day since I bought them. This is almost 10 years ago since the Anycubic I3 Mega made its presence in the world, and I bought the machine after doing a lot of research of the machines that were available at that time for that price range that I bought these machines. These machines were going for about $450 at that time, and so I bought a few of these machines. I bought one, and and that machine is sitting right up there. That's my number one. I have this is a number. I believe this is my number 4. I have a number 3 there, and I have a number 2 here that I'm doing some additional upgrades. Um, I'll talk a little bit about what I'm doing here in just a little while here, but this machine right here is the one that I'm working on right now, because it developed an issue where the bed sensor was not coming on, and I thought it was some kind of an intermittent wiring issue with the wires that go to the thermistor, which is sitting right there, which is a sensor that senses the heat, the temperature, and then the power connection to the table here. But that's all fine. The wires, I cut this sheeting right here because I'm going to put a chain link track on the machine, similar to what I did to this machine right here. So you can see that one has a nice chain link or cable system here, cable management system, I guess they call these chains here. So I did my own chain here, I did my own attachment there. You can also see that I also have a spool holder here, a new spool holder, and I showed this in another video. But my clips here are also something that I developed, for these machines as I'm doing these updates. After, I've done quite a bit of updates, or I should say upgrades to the machine over the machines over the years. Some of them were around the hot end. I developed my own hot end assemblies, but I ended up going back to the original hot end assemblies, because these are all metal, and there's no way you can, you cannot compare a metal structure, with a 3D printed one, and that's the reason why I went back to the original ones. On this one here, you can see the this right here is a this I kept because this is a 3D printed air distribution shroud that goes almost like a horseshoe, and it spits out air through the rear here. We're looking at the rear of the machine, the rear and the sides of this horseshoe shroud that fits over the fan, the existing fan that cools the parts. That I kept. It's got LEDs here. I'm going to be fixing this one because the wires got caught on one of the part that got messed up a while back, and it ripped up it ripped the wiring that is wired in parallel with this other LED. This These little strips here, there are 3 LEDs, and so these operate at 12 volts, and they're tied in with the those are tied in with one of the fans here. I forget which fan it is, but it's as soon as the machine starts coming on, to speed and temperature, this kicks in, the light kicks in, and then once that's off, it's off. So that's about the only upgrade that I kept on the hot end. Like I said, 3D printed parts. A hot end made out of 3D printed parts. You can't beat the structure of this. This is all metal, and it's just fine the way it is. It's just it needs, if anything, about these machines, that it needs better distribution of the cooling portion of this machine right here, because the original one is just on the side here, it just cools inside and spits air laterally like this. And so with this shroud, it spits out on the sides and on the back of the machine. It would be great if it would spit out also in the front, and I can modify this part, to do that, because I do have the room in the front. So that's for a later revision, to this particular upgrade that I did to these machines. But as far as the this setup right here, the wires are just fine. And I cut the sheathing because I am going to use that cable management system, as I just showed in my other machine here, and I'm going to do that to all my machines. And I'm in the process of working on this, because there's also developed an issue with the fan that cools off these heat sinks on these drivers. If you look at the way the fan sits, the fan is mounted like this, with most of the air hitting these three drivers, and not these not so much these other two. I mean, some of that air that gets washed out, it goes into these other ones. But the fan should be. I mean, if I want to do this right, I'm thinking of putting a bracket here that's going to house two smaller fans here in either in series or in parallel, so that they both drive at the same time when this fan comes on, so that it cools all these drivers, the heat sinks, equally. So I think that's going to be my modification. In lieu that this fan has, I repaired this fan once before, a while back. As I was looking at this cover here, it looks like I took it out and I repaired it, and this got stuck and it was heating up, and so that's one of the reasons. Also, I believe that my sensors were kind of intermittent. So I still have to check the wiring, continue checking the wiring for that for the bed, because I was having issues with the bed cooling, heating up to the right temperature. It was unless I move the cable. Every time I would move this cable, it would trigger again. So I believe I still have an intermittent connection somewhere inside one of these wires that goes to the either to the sensor or to the power to the bed, to the hot bed. I try to measure the voltage, and I'm not getting voltage there, but I am getting voltage here. So I think there is something wrong in the link from that point to the table. So it's got to be somewhere in one wire is probably frayed. But getting back to these fans, I am going to replace this fan, like I said, with either a dual fan system here. I am going to replace this fan here on the power supply. In fact, on my other machine, the power supply, that fan does not come on as this one. When machines power, this fan should be on, because the power supply is on, and so this fan should be. I believe, I don't know if these fans are intermittent or fully on all the time, but I believe when the power supply comes on, this fan is also should be on. Just because things get warm there, and you gotta provide cooling, to the power supply. So I am going to check my other power supply. In fact, I'm going to do the same thing that I'm showing in this video to all my machines here. So I wanted to capture this on video for anybody that still has these machines. I know we're talking about almost 10 years after the fact, but I still use these machines, and like I said, I will not buy a machine, one of the modern machines, primarily because number one, I don't like the open architecture of the modern machines. That's kind of minor. The most important part is that they all these newer machines, they took the LCD display and they mounted on the side. That is an eyesore in my opinion, and I'm sure there are other people that feel the same way. I mean, from a logical standpoint, you cannot beat a machine that has the display embedded in the base, kind of hidden away, nice and clean. And so this is one of the reasons why I love the Anycubic i3 Mega. And I have a couple other machines that I bought from Two Trees that did the same thing. They embedded and I bought those machines for the same reason, that they embedded the controller inside the base, and the display is also kind of similar to this machine there. I will never buy. I did buy a couple machines, and I did a couple reviews on those machines. I ended up returning them because I didn't like the way they were printed, and I didn't like that silly way that they mounted these plates on the side of these machines. That's just, from a logical standpoint. I hope people are reasonable in accepting my opinion of that from a logical, common sense perspective. But that's my point on those machines, and I just love the Anycubic I3 Megas because of their simplicity. It's a very simple machine. In fact, 3D printers are very simple when you break it down into small sections or sub assemblies. As and so that's what I've been doing to these machines. That's what I'm going to change. This is how I'm checking things. In addition to that, I've been considering putting a voltmeter. One of those voltmeters that you buy. Those just those little volt amp meters. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something like this, and this I did for my go-kart. This is a panel for one of my go-karts, where I embedded this volt amp meter. I still have to connect it, but it's one of these little devices here, and I ordered some of these. I'm not sure if I'm going to put these or just the regular round ones, just to show me the voltage, because amperage is not really that important. All I want to do is monitor the voltage of the 12.5 volts that is required. That's required for these machines to that is required at the output of the power supply. Here, make sure my AC is out. Yeah, my AC cable's on. You get this has an adjustment. These power supplies has a potentiometer right there, and you adjust that to 12.5. I think it's the recommended setting. Output of the power supply AC comes in through here. You have your AC line coming in through these three connections, and then your output is converted to DC via these other outputs here. You have three outputs and three grounds and three pluses here for the power distribution of 12.5 volts on this machine, on this particular Anycubic style machines. Some other machines they use 24 volts, they up that voltage, but on these they it's real easy, 12.5 volts. But I am going to install one of those meters in the front panel so that I can see that that I am of course when the machine's on, that tells you already that the machine's operating at 12 volts. But I want to dial in on the voltage, see if that drops. I know that that's dropping, and I can prevent any issues with the machines just by monitoring the voltage of the power supply. That's going to be one indicator that I'm going to mount on the front panel here, either here on this side or here. There's plenty of room, as you can see, and that's I love this. I just love this machine because it allows you to also mod it and make it customize it. I mean, it's I can't say enough about this machine. I mean, and it's not because I'm being paid by Anycubic. No company pays me to do anything. I am my own man here. If I put something in pro or against something, I do it with from an honest and common sense point of view. And that's the way things should be done, with people. I cannot stand videos of people that are they get paid, they get sent free machines, and then the first thing they do is they start promoting the hell out of the whatever they're sent, because they were sent that machine. They're not as honest in the review, and they don't they bypass saying anything negative about the machine from a personal operational point. So I just don't. I'm not one of those people that falls for that bullshit. And so anything that I put is like I said, I'm my own man. I've been my own man under MIA Microflight, and that's one of the reasons I established MIA Microflights, because I was so tired of the red tape that goes on in the corporate world, and we can see that happening also in other areas. I'm not going to mention I'm not going to say what those other areas are, but if you're a smart viewer, person, common sense, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So getting back to the modification that I'm going to do to these machines to put a voltage meter so that I can read the voltage of the power supply on the front panel, and just monitor that is. It's another indicator, because this does have the room, like I was saying. I'm also going to add some LEDs that are going to be connected. There are LEDs on this board right here that when these fans come on, you can see those little LEDs coming on. But it doesn't, it does no good to have the LEDs there unless you're troubleshooting the board. You have opened the machine, and so I think it's much better to have those indicators on the machine itself, on the outside, on the panel, so that you know that when the fan is on, it comes on. Um, for example, this fan right here that I'm going to replace, that fan locked up and it was drawing a lot of current, and when it draws a lot of current, if it draws beyond a certain threshold, these little MOSFETs that are the drivers to these fans, they go. And so when the fan locks up, it's going to draw current. It's going to blow out those MOSFETs. I have replaced those MOSFETs on some other machines, and typically that's what happens when you start drawing current. And so that's another feature, another nice thing I would say of having that volt amp meter here, because you can also monitor these things, and you can go crazy with those meters. I mean, I could install a good few of them here to monitor each one of these individually. Monitor the voltage of the fan, monitor the because the fans do tend to lock up. Like I said, I can also monitor this fan right here and have another meter. Just monitor the fans, or just simply an LED that's telling me that fan is operational. But it's good also to have an indicator of how much amperage these things are drawing, because if it starts drawing too much amperage and you have a visual in the front of panel of the machine, you know exactly where that's coming from, where the trouble is, and you can stop the machine and prevent further damage, as I was saying, to these particular drive, because it's a pain in the butt, having to desolder those and put on another one. They're really tiny, and unless you have the right equipment, it's very difficult to replace that. Most people just replace the whole board. I'm not one of those people. I can, I'm fortunate to have, I don't have professional equipment, but I do have, equipment that tools that can repair this, and I take my time. I have magnifying glasses that I use, so I find ways. You don't got to have the bells and whistles of equipment or setups, to repair that. You just got to have the will to do that, and and be persistent, and not let you be defeated, but by just a little chip like that. I mean, it's kind of silly to replace a whole board. Even if these boards are, you can buy these boards for about $30-$40, I think, nowadays, or maybe $50. With the economy the way it is at, I think these boards are no longer that cheap. Uh, if you can repair this, that is a 10-25 cent part. And so I stock up on these little MOSFETs. I have MOSFETs that operate at various voltages and various power levels, current levels. And so I replace those with better ones, that can handle a little more current. But if the fan starts going out and you don't have any way to monitor the fan, it's going to blow that chip regardless. Even if you have a higher amperage MOSFET driving that fan, if that locks up, it's going to draw. If it draws more amperage than that little MOSFET can handle, it's going to blow it. That's just the nature of things. So those are my upgrades. So that's my plan on this machine right here, on these machines right here, because I'm going to be doing that to all of my machines. I have 4 of these machines, and one in a box that I never used. It's just sitting there as kind of a spare parts if I ever need to do that. In the more than 10 years that I've been using these machines, I've never had to borrow a board or do things like that, or even replace these drivers right here. Most of my replacements have been in the nozzle. Some of the the tubes, the Teflon tubes, with the hot ends. I mean, I have replaced the hot ends on a few times on these machines, but most of the time I just replace the I clean this out really well, because you can do that too if you have the time, if you have the inclination to do that, and the persistence. You don't need to replace the whole thing if the issue is with this with a nozzle. Most of the time it's with a nozzle, but people replace the whole thing because for $13 you can buy a whole assembly. It's a lot easier that way. And like I said, I'm not that type of person. I like replacing things to the component level because I can. And so, many years when people started buying these machines, they started doing the upgrades. There were a few videos that surfaced, people removing the this sticky back membrane from the machines here, and putting their own panels here, the 3D printed frames. And so I decided to do the same. Not so much because I wanted to remove this frame, this membrane. First of all, this membrane has a practical use, and let me explain what that is. You can see that this membrane has a plastic see-through as part of this membrane section here. So when this is on the machine, it not only provides this I don't know, aesthetical graphical view here of the front panel, but it also has this protective clear membrane or screen that protects the actual screen, which is I think these are glass screens. So it serves a well worthwhile purpose. Some people don't like these membranes, these sticky back covers here, and so they replace them. And what I've seen people do is they go with a 3D printed part like this. This is my own. I did this last night, taking measurements from this. This one is a little bit tight, so I am going to be changing this. And it looks kind of cool. It looks different. It looks a little more elegant. That I agree with. That it does look more elegant if you do a frame like that. But you have this now you have this exposed, with the actual glass. If you drop something there, if this tool happens to kind of hit it there on the corner, it's probably going to shatter that glass. And I am, one of the other reasons why I don't like those displays on the sides is because you have no protection whatsoever there. I mean, you can bend that bracket, you can accidentally lean on it, or something can fall on it. So it's better to have everything enclosed, like I always have said, and why I favor these particular Anycubic i3 Megas as any machine that has a built-in an enclosed electronics in the base of the machine, where I think it should be. And you have the display in front of the machine. Let me give you an example of something why I also like this machine. Here we have a CNC machine, one of the early machines. Actually, I think it was one of the first ones that came from Romex. Romex is a USA company, made in the USA completely. And it's a very, very solid machine. I have another video that talks about this machine because I've been cleaning this also. This machine has been defunct for many years. I have had no need to use this machine. I used to do a lot of cutting of these little frames that I used to sell for the micro helicopters. And so when that kind of died down, this machine became just static, just a paperweight. But I am going to put this machine back to use, and it's a solid machine. You can see that. Go watch my video on this. But my point was that this also has the front panel. All the electronics are embedded in the base, where I think these machines should be. Anything that you need to access in an emergency is at the front of the machine. You see that it's got all those dials and buttons there. Same buttons that are on the software are physically here. The important ones: emergency, cycle start, feed hold, and then you have that. Also, you can manipulate the x-axis, via that dial right there. And of course, connections. I don't care for these connections being on the front of the machine. I think this company should have placed those at the rear of the machine or on the side of the machine. Well, so I don't care for these connections here. Dials and things that you need to access, to control the machine, should be at the front. So you can see why I favor machines that have, the display and the controllers in the base, and that's why I'm thinking of putting the my voltmeters indicators right here on the machine, and and that way also I have a visual, what's going on. When it seems a little more, just a little more, from an information standpoint. Just I want to be able to access all that via the machine and monitor that. So, and it's going to look really, really, it's going to look really, really. Not I don't want to say cool, because I'm not, it's not for the cool factor that I'm doing these things. It's more for a functional and more from a preventive maintenance point of view. So this is where I am with these machines. I wanted to capture this on video because like I said, there may be other people that still have these machines, and if you have one of these machines, keep it, because these machines are the machines, the way they're made these days, they're crappy. They're really crappy, in my opinion. There may be one or two that are companies that are going the extra mile and are thinking outside the box, but that particular, having the display on the side on the floating arm, no way, no freaking way. I like I said, I bought a couple of machines just to test the machines, and I was actually more upset having that silly display on the side than anything, having had these machines with this display. Never had any issues with this. So I am going to complete this this setup right here. I may do just a complete panel here, but I am going to reintroduce that plastic cover here, that protective cover that was on the original membrane, just so that I don't scratch this this panel right here. So it's got to be protected, in my opinion, and so I am going to reintroduce that. Maybe have this panel fully printed here. I am going to do perforations here, so I'm going to be modifying this the front panels to include the voltmeter, amp meter, and all the LEDs, to just monitor the important things, like the fans. The fans are important. The heating elements are important, even though you do have that those visuals right here on the on the machine itself. And I just love the simplicity of these displays. I mean, it's great colors, very simple, easy to see, easy to it doesn't have the graphical displays like on some modern machines have. The graphical the graphical 3D print item. But you really don't need that. That's if you remember the name, that's all you need on this machine. The only other my only other gripe with this setup is that you have to go through all these files in order to search for that particular file. That's my only thing with this. But I try not to put too many files in one of the SD cards, and SD cards are cheap these days. So it's I try to assemble all my projects on a per SD card basis. So if I have let's say if I have an ultralight that I developed, and it's got about 12 sets of 12 different parts, I would have 12 different files. So I can go through 12 files really easy here, and I can try to keep those in just that particular SD card, so it's not it doesn't get cluttered with other files. Only when I do like projects like this even this is all these things that I'm doing for the Anycubic are on the Anycubic SD card, strictly Anycubic, Anycubic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So each Anycubic has its own files that I can access, even though these are repetitive, for all of them. But it just keeps things a little more organized and easier to access. So this is where I'm at, and yeah, I am going to be replacing that fan on the other machine. You can see how clean this machine is right here. This is my other modification that I did to this machine right here. It's just a shroud that covers the that unsightly connector there, and it's easier to this is easier to remove. I can remove this from the back. Well, this is connected right here via these two screws. If I remove these two screws, this comes out and that comes out, and I can easily access. If I need to replace the hot end there, by disconnecting this cable and disconnecting this Teflon tube from the machine. So it's it's a nice little, just an aesthetical and also functional mod, as well as the lights right here. On this one, the lights, you can, let's see if I can you can see the two sets of LED strips that are here. There are three LEDs per strip right here, and these are connected in parallel. This one I connected. I brought the cables through the front, which is a lot cleaner and a lot safer than my other one that broke because I had the cables at the back and it got caught in one of the parts that it was getting blobs of. It messed up and it was getting blobs of filament and it caught into one of the wires and it ripped it. So I'm going to redo the other ones. I'm going to do it the same thing as this because this is really simple to do. These are the strips with the sticky back. I just sticky back them onto this this shroud here that I talked about earlier in the start of this video. How I made this shroud and to cool the part better on the three sides. But I can also bring this shroud. Extend the shroud to the front and provide also access through the front of the machine so that it cools the part at all four sides, front, back, left, and right. So, but so that's another upgrade. I replaced the original springs, with these ones. These are these are almost like a brownish yellow. They're painted, they're thicker springs, and I love these springs because they really hold the printing surface at that level without any risk of getting loose. So they're very nice springs. So I did that. That's the other modification, and yeah, this is where I'm at. So for anybody that like I said, that has these machines, and I'm pretty sure there are other videos, there are other people that have probably stumbled on this and probably are doing this or have done the same thing, going with dual fans here just to distribute it's a logical thing, when you think about these things, it's nothing new, it's not a new invention, none of that stuff. It's not my own design, as some people might say, this guy is, he thinks he's the only one that has done this. I have had people, criticize some of the stuff before, but I don't dwell on those comments because it's silly, So practical common sense point of view, dual fan here, replace this fan. I'm going to go with better fans there. Some people have mentioned that they've used Noctuna, or I think if I remember the name correctly, it's those brown fans. Apparently they're the best fans. I have not had any personal experience with those fans. So I'm going by what they're saying. But the ultimate test is one's personal work and opinion with these things. Mario, once again, stay tuned for more.